The financial plan is the blueprint. So once we have their blueprint, then we can help them basically navigate to their goals and their dreams.
We recognize genius wherever it exists. And if you're known by the company you keep, we are proud to not only spotlight the women that are part of Rockefeller Capital Management's unique network, but also welcome our brilliant audience members.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kristen Sario, Divisional Director of Rockefeller Global Family Office's Southeast Division, and welcome back to Genius Loves Company. Everyone has a story to tell, and we're excited to hear those from some of Rockefeller's top private advisors, investors, senior leaders, and women in our broader network about the life and career experiences that got them here and the insights and perspectives they've gained. With me today is Mia Cardwell, one of Rockefeller's top private advisors. She brings decades of experience to her role as managing director of Cardwell Wealth Partners based in Chicago, Illinois. To her clients, Mia is a counselor, a confidant, and personal CFO. Her expertise in retirement, business succession, charitable tax and compensation planning has made her a highly sought-after advisor in the industry. Mia, welcome.
Thank you, Kristen. It's great to be here.
I'm really excited about today. We've had a little bit of time to chat beforehand, and you have a great story to share. So let's start at the very beginning. Tell us about your background. I want to know where you were born. Tell me about your family, your upbringing, your education. Start at the very beginning for us.
Well, I was born in Birmingham, Alabama. My mom did not really take to Birmingham, so we moved back up to a small town in Indiana very shortly after my birth. Raised in small town USA, manufacturing town. My parents owned their own businesses. My father ran the residential real estate, and my mom ran the appraisal business. I am the oldest of three. Given that it was a family business, all three of us worked in there. The business, anywhere from changing weekly marquee signs that my dad would have a famous quote he would put up weekly, cleaning the office, picking up signs, delivering signs, taking pictures, you name it, we did. Basically, we were their gophers and did anything that they needed in the family business. Then I moved on to Purdue University, where I obtained my financial planning degree and loved financial planning. I've been in the business for about 25 years. I am a mother of 5, all in their 20s now, so experiencing empty nesting at this stage of our life.
I always wonder, is it really an empty nest? Because from my experience, or maybe not my experience quite yet, but from what I've seen, they always seem to come back home.
So my oldest bought a home 1.5 miles from us, and she's there every day. So no, I don't think it's completely empty nesting.
And I knew we would be fast friends because although you said you were born in Birmingham, so the South, your roots seem to be really from the Midwest, which is also where I'm from, and Midwesterners tend to flock together. I have to ask, though, did you always know you wanted to go into financial advisory?
No. So when I started at Purdue, I was for sure going to be an accountant. That's all I wanted to do. And then I started taking some of the accounting classes, getting to know some of my fellow students. And I'm like, I'm not sure this is really for me. And I had the opportunity to go to it was like a workshop they were having on financial planning. It's a financial planning degree from Purdue. At that point in time, Purdue was one of the only few schools in the nation that even had a program. Went and listened to it, and I'm like, this has got the best of both worlds. I can still have the accounting, the finance, but you get the investments, you get the relationship, you do the charitable planning. So it really was much more up my alley because it was relationship-based. Not that accountants are not. It's just a little bit deeper relationship that you have with the clients.
Well, it sounds like you got the best of a lot of worlds in that financial advisory business by going in that direction. And it's funny you say that about accounting, but when I was doing my graduate work at Duke, one of my first classes was an accounting class. And I somehow had never taken an accounting class. And I sat there and thought, I am on a completely different planet. It was not connecting for me. And I thought being in our financial and advisory world, I would connect the dots immediately. That was not the case. So tied to that in a similar way, when you think back, what was your earliest memory of money?
So at a very young age, my dad had always used the expression, money does not grow on trees. And they had a number of chores that we had to do around home and the office to have an allowance. And then even when we had the allowance, they said we could utilize it to spend whatever we want. But that was after we had saved, tithe. And then we could go spend however we wanted on the money. So I obviously spent quite a bit on 45 records. It was not fun those days in college when you decided you needed to part with all of them. And that was a lot of wasted money. But that would be my earliest memory of money at this point.
So money doesn't grow on trees.
No,
I think
it does
we've
not.
all heard that time and time again from someone. As a trusted partner in the legacies of some of the world's most successful, entrepreneurs, innovators, the value of advice is central to what you do here at Rockefeller. So I have to ask, what is some of the best financial advice beyond money not growing on trees that you've gotten?
First and foremost, there's probably 3 or 4 bullet points that's really stuck in my mind. Give your time and financial resources to others, whether that's tithing, charitable organizations, supporting missionaries. That's very big in the family I grew up in. Saving 20% of everything we've made, making sure that we instill that at a very young age. Pay cash instead of utilizing credit. And my father would say, again, you're going to hear me throughout this. He's a very big influence on my life. Most people can make money, but they do not know how to keep the money they have and have it work for them. And lastly, enjoy the fruits of your labor after you've done all the rest.
Oh, that's great advice. A lot of people can make the money, but they don't always know how to keep the money and then enjoy it. So thinking about your business and your clients, do you have a specific philosophy or an approach when you're providing financial guidance to your clients?
So when a client comes to us, and typically they will start the conversation, how do I invest my money? And we really step back and say, we really can't get to that point yet. Let's really get to know you. What are your goals, your dreams? What are you trying to aspire to? What are you trying to do with your family and your future legacy? And we really make them start with a financial plan. Financial planning is a process. The financial plan is the blueprint. So once we have their blueprint, then we can help them basically navigate to their goals and their dreams. And then investing will be one part of that overall situation. But we really have to try to slow them down and make sure that we understand how all their pieces in their financial situation work together before we can even start advising them on the investment side.
So it sounds like you're completely flip-flopping the way in which some people think it should be done and making their first step your last step.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
So going off of that prior question, how has your background influenced this approach that you just talked about?
I think part of it is when you really take the time to get to know somebody, you're wanting to try to connect with them on a personal level. Because for them to open up and really share what their past experiences of money, what their current experience is, what they're trying to attain, you need to understand where they're coming from. I think my approach is kind of unique because I did grow up in small town USA, which when you grow up in a small town, there is very diverse economic classes. I was raised in a family-owned business environment, first generation to go to college. Starting out in corporate America, I had which we'll get to later, but I did have a traumatic event at the age of 37, losing my husband. But all those experiences allowed me, I think, to relate to our clients on a personal level. So then that brings comfort to them as far as when you're trying to dive into their personal situation and finding out what, again, their goals, their objectives, where they're at, where they've been. That is a lot deeper connection than just talking about, hey, what ABC stock do we buy today?
Agree. And you and I talked about that a little bit earlier. It's those shared experiences, those shared connections that create relationships and trust. So I couldn't agree more. You were a senior VP at Whitnell & Co., where you spent a little over 13 years of your career before it was acquired by Rockefeller in 2021. So what was that transition like, and what makes you excited about being part of Rockefeller today?
So it was exciting and scary at the same time. When Rockefeller came knocking on the door, to be part of the oldest family office in the United States, I mean, that's something that you dream about when you're a kid. On the flip side, going to an organization after you've been, a smaller office and going to a bigger firm, it was a little scary. But I will tell you, from the time that we started our due diligence to the time that we started our onboarding process, the professionalism, the competency, the camaraderie, that connection with the people at Rockefeller, you really did feel quite at home. And the one thing that I think ran through and through when we spoke to anyone from the Rockefeller team was that they understood our clients came first. And it was very client-centric. And how do we make this transition from Whitnell to Rockefeller? And in my opinion, very seamless transition because the clients saw us as the face. At the end of the day, we were able to deliver the same type of services and elevate with products and services we did not have before coming to Rockefeller.
And something that resonated with me is the clients first. I think that's at the forefront of everything that we talk about at Rockefeller. And it's nice to hear you say that was part of your early experience, which I know was earlier than my experience at Rockefeller. So that thread continues through. So this next question, we could create an entire episode on. You and I could talk about this one for days as we both have kids. The financial services industry offers really unique opportunities for growth and success, and we both love that. But it can also present certain challenges, especially for mothers working to integrate our professional lives, our family lives, personal, professional. Are they different? Are they the same? And as a working mother in this field, can you share some of your insights on navigating the experiences you've had?
So I'm going to chop it up into two different segments. First would have been when I first started out in the business. Obviously, you're starting with no kids. So you're able to work anytime you want, have no commitments. Then moving into parenthood. And it was a balancing act. What I think added to mine, again, we talked about that situation I had at 37. I had a phenomenal career. I was working at Harris Bank. My husband, we had 2 children. We had a third on the way. Life was good. He was rocking his career. And then all of a sudden, he passed away of a massive heart attack at age 40 when I was 26 weeks pregnant. And it really felt like the wheels came off. And I will tell you that, after that, I had worked so hard. I'm 37. I had worked so hard to get to where I'm at. And I will tell you, it did change priorities a little bit. I had gone back. I was running one of the largest wealth management teams for Harris Private Bank at that time. And I did it for a year after the kids were born. And I really had to make a decision. And the decision was that my kids were not seeing me a lot. And I had at that point in time a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And the choice I had to make was you get one shot to be a parent. My executive management team were phenomenal. And I just said, I love what I'm doing, but you've got to get me back out to the burbs because I was living out in the burbs, and I've got to run a smaller team and be there for my kids. And it was probably one of the hardest decisions to make. And then in 2007, 3 years after it happened, my old boss at Harris came to me and said, hey, I'm taking a position with a small family office at Whitnell. It's family ran, but they're getting to the point where they want to expand and do wealth management services outside of just the family. Would you come on board? And I'm like, you're crazy. I have 3 small children under 8 years old. There's no way. Well, I'm not saying I always make quite the best decisions, but I will tell you it was the best decision in the world. But when you talk about balancing, it was really, really tough, but I would always be honest with my clients. I would share my personal situation. So if we were in a client meeting and they saw that the babysitter or one of the kids called, they understood I had to take that call. I've been very blessed because this career, again, when we talked about the connectivity with clients, the clients are sharing themselves with you. Well, in turn, you're sharing yourselves with them in their personal situation. And it's been such a blessing to have this career and to be able to help people. And so when I tell clients, you need to go get your estate planning in place. You need to get your life insurance in place. Thank God we did when it happened. That tends to carry a little bit more weight when you're talking about your personal situation. So it has been balancing. There's been times I've been up and down walking the soccer field on the sidelines, taking a business call while they're out there and my kid's looking at me, you're on the phone again. But at the same time, it's provided opportunities with flexibility to be there when I need to be there.
There's so many things to unpack in that. And the first one I want to share with our listeners is that as you were telling your story, I think both of us got a little glassy-eyed, but through all of that, you were still smiling, which means you made the absolute right decision on your path in life. And I applaud that as a mom, as a business professional. So many lessons in there. And one thing that you said, you were your authentic self, letting your clients be a part of the experience you were going through with checking your phone and babysitters. And I can't tell you the number of fields that I've taken calls, But also, your kids get to listen to you make those calls and get to hear and be so proud of what you're doing. And I think about that every day, too, as my daughters and my son are getting older. But as my daughters are old enough to understand what they're hearing and asking questions, I think it is part of their growth as well. And we underestimate that in the beginning of our careers when we think, they can't mix. But I've always said there is no balance. It just is.
So I will share a little bit when we're in the car and afterwards when the kids are, they're at those ages, they're on their 20s and, jabbing at mom. They'll be like, oh, well, let me tell you about asset allocation. Well, no, let me tell you about cash flow planning and why you need to do this or that. So, you become the butt of their jokes at the same time. But they do listen. And you know what? They gain those experiences along the way.
Sure. And I would love to hear how they explain all of those. So let me know when they want to tell me all about it. You've been in the financial advisory space for over 20 years. And when you look back, is there something that surprises you about how the industry has transformed over time?
Information, the access to information. It used to be when I started in the business years and years ago, there was not the wealth of information with the internet, the news, the constant, self-help books all the time. It's really hard sometimes with the massive information that's coming to them to really decipher the difference between short-term and long-term goals. And there really is not a get-rich-quick scheme. And so one of the things that we've really had to work on clients is you really got to ignore the noise and concentrate on the financial plan that we've put in place for you. So we're living in a time of FOMO, fear of missing out. Most of the time, I think we do a really good job of educating at the beginning that, we talk about that if you see the market drop, you just got to ignore it. And I was talking to a client on the way up yesterday, and her father was asking her, well, are you getting nervous about the market? And they were laughing and they said, oh, no, let me guess. Mia's told you just to ignore it and just basically stay to your financial plan. When you're getting even your clients telling you stories that they're hearing from their parents or friends. And I'll share one other story. So years ago, clients of mine, they were out in the East Coast and they were on a holiday and they were playing Monopoly. And they called me the next week and they're like, it's a multi-generational family that we work with. And they're like, we just wanted to share a story that you were thought of over the 4th of July. I'm like, well, that's great. And they're like, well, we were playing Monopoly and all of us were trying to decide, well, if we brought this property or this hotel or this house, well, I don't know, what's Mia going to say? I'm not sure it's going to fit in our financial plan.
Well, I love that they were playing Monopoly. That is one of those games when someone says, I want to play Monopoly, I'm like, do you know how long that game takes to play? It has a very long game, but so many lessons. And I think it's funny that they were thinking, what would Mia say? Yeah. So we just talked about perhaps a big surprise, but tell me what excites you most about where our industry is headed over the next 10 to 15 years.
I think the financial education and the client-centric services that are available now for clients, so such as, we have the lifestyle advisory services here at Rockefeller, whether someone they're traveling and they're needing help where, emergency medical help or cybersecurity or just those type of services, as well as the financial education. So again, a client, they were talking how they really like it because we're starting to work with their kids that are graduating from college. And they're like, if we would have had you at this age. And so you're seeing a lot more of the parents in their 40s and 50s and 60s giving the gift rather than just giving financial assets to their kids. They're giving them the gift of financial education. And so where they're going to be at the time that they're 30 and 40 and 50, it's just light years ahead. And so I think when you talk about what is exciting, I think that, really people embracing the educational process, I think is something you haven't ever seen before in our industry.
I recently had the pleasure of being able to go through a demo of one of our financial education classes, if you will. And it was brief, but we talked about values and we pulled out value cards. And I thought, I'm going to put this around our Thanksgiving dinner table. I'm going to pull these out at a time when we're grateful and talking about the blessings and the things that we're grateful for before dinner. And I'm going to ask everybody to prioritize their top 3. And I thought that is so educational and a conversation starter. And I never thought about the impact it would have even with my kids being, 19, 16, and 11. And that's just one piece of what you're talking about.
Well, and you're probably surprised when you're having those conversations, they're really not coming back to just money. Money may impact that, but when you're asking them about values, they're bringing up quite a few other different topics.
Sure. I think it will be interesting to see how we all explain our values differently, even if they're the same words and phrases. Interesting. On the show, we love to talk about mentors and the impact of those relationships. So as you've grown in this career, can you tell us who your most important advisors or role models have been? And I'd love to hear how they've influenced you along the way.
My very first mentor, again, would be my father. So even though they ran a real estate and appraisal business, he was fascinated with the markets. Along our conversations, if it wasn't about real estate, it was about the stock market. And so he taught all of us at a very young age how to invest, how to analyze a stock, how to analyze a mutual fund. And given that, he would talk about, hey, those things as far as role models, but then he also would make us read books. And so his favorite books, he gave us our Daily Bread, which is a daily devotion, but also Augmendino, which a lot of people haven't heard of him, or Zig Ziglar or Dale Carnegie. In our late teens and 20s, my siblings and I all had to go through the Bob Cannon crash course of basically reading if we wanted to have money to go do certain things. And then moving into, I was very lucky in my career to have managers in the business, again, client-centric. So they would voice the same things over and over like my father did. Do what's right, have the most integrity, deliver the services to the highest degree that you can, and the business will follow, referrals will follow over the years. I have been very blessed in my career because most of our referrals come from our existing clients, and that is because I think of the top level service that we're able to provide, especially with the breadth and wealth of services that we have at Rockefeller.
That's wonderful. So you went into this a little bit, but for young people listening, what advice can you offer them as they are embarking on their career journeys right now?
First of all, they got to find out what they like. By doing that, when you're in your high school years and your college years and you're first starting out, network. You find something that someone's doing that's intriguing, even if it's not your major in college, go talk to them. Ask them if you can job shadow. Ask lots of questions. I can't stress enough that you see people starting college and they think they have to have their whole future mapped out, and this is what they're going to do. I think the beauty of your 20s is to try different things, get your degree, but really figure out what it is that makes you tick. You cannot do a job day in and day out if you're miserable. And so, they can do that by their job. They can also volunteer for different hobbies, but really spending time networking. And if there's a job out there that intrigues them, can I pick your brain? What is it like to be you? What is it that you do day to day? What is it that you like to do?
That's great advice, because I remember it similar to what you just said. You say you're going off to college, and it's what's college, and then it's what are you majoring in, and then it's what do you want to do? And you feel like you have to have answers to all of those things right away. But what I'm hearing you say is just get out there and try everything. That's great. Switching gears for a minute, people who know you are aware you have this passion for attending concerts. So I have to know, what was the first concert you ever attended?
It was 1982, and it was Loverboy and 38 Special.
It sounds like you've been to a number of concerts. Do you have the most memorable or your favorite along the way?
Well, I'll tell you 2 or 3 that really rank up there. So 1994, Rolling Stones, Voodoo concert up at University of Wisconsin. To this day will be one of my favorite, watching Mick Jagger jump around for hours upon hours. Then 2014, going and attending in Memphis, Tennessee, driving down there to see Eric Clapton, April 30th, outdoor, bundled up, long underwear, could not even see. We had the scarves and the hats and the gloves, just listening to him play for those few hours. And then Ray LaMontagne back in 2011. He's probably one of my most favorite, but we will travel anywhere to see a favorite artist.
That's great. You're getting to see music, you're getting to travel, and it sounds like you have great memories from doing that. Finally, something that we love to ask all our guests is 10 o'clock, Saturday morning. Where will we find you?
2 to 5 years ago, my response would have been at one of the sports fields or sport courts. I'm in a blended marriage with 5 children, and so they were all in travel sports. You fast forward now, it will either be at our lake home boating or we'll be on our biking. We have bike trails by our house, so we're avid bikers. And traveling. We do a lot of traveling, just getting in the car and deciding we want to go explore something for the day.
That's great. You know, no one ever told me how much I was going to enjoy watching my kids doing sports. They never say that to you. It's a lot of bags. It's a lot of chairs to carry. It's a lot of snacks. But it is one of the most fulfilling things that I do on the weekends or when there are games during the week. But I'll take the lake house any day.
I will tell you, I do miss it because when you're on with the field with them, I would always volunteer to drive because that's the way you really get to know what's going on with your kids. When you've got them and 3-4 other kids, you get to find out everything that's going on without having to ask your kids, 15 questions. I do miss those days, but there'll be another time when we have grandkids and we'll be right back into that.
There will be. Like we said at the beginning, the empty nest is really never empty. So Mia, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your incredible story today. It's been a true pleasure. And thank you to everybody for tuning in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Genius Loves Company. To learn more about Rockefeller Capital Management, visit rockco.com or keep up with us on LinkedIn or Instagram. This material was prepared by Rockefeller Capital Management. The views expressed of the hosts and guests in this episode are as of a particular point in time and are subject to change without notice. The views expressed by the speakers are solely their own and may differ from or conflict with those of other divisions in Rockefeller Capital Management. This information was provided for illustrative and educational purposes only. It should not be construed as an investment recommendation, investment advice, an offer of Rockefeller investment advisory or brokerage services, or a projection or illustration of the performance of any particular investment or strategy offered by Rockefeller. Forward-looking statements, including those presented herein, are inherently uncertain, as future events may differ materially from those reflected, and past performance is not a guarantee of future performance.